Hello, my name is Josephine Mead and I'm the Communications Officer at Res Artis, the worldwide network of arts residencies. Today, I'm speaking from our global Australian headquarters on Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country in Melbourne, and am joined by Julia Asperska from Poland. Res Artis has over 580 members across the world. Our members range from large institutions to tiny grassroots organisations. We promote our members' programs, act as advocates for the arts residency field, and host annual conferences which bring to light the possibilities of arts residencies and cultural mobility. This year, our annual conference titled How to Inhabit Instability was planned to be held in Kiev, Ukraine, and hosted by Latvia in cooperation with Ukrainian Institute, House of Europe, and the Goethe Institute in Ukraine. When we devised this title, we could never have imagined the horrific events that have unfolded with the Russian invasion and war against Ukraine. Our efforts with other like-minded organisations and our Ukrainian partners have been redirected to promote emergency residency opportunities and aid initiatives that support artists, creatives, and cultural workers of Ukraine, primarily with the creation of a special section on the Res Artis website solely for this purpose. We've been heartened to hear of initiatives across the globe that carry on these efforts of solidarity with Ukraine. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Julia Asperska to talk about her experience in facilitating the Sanatorium Project with Karolina Wycisk. Julia Asperska is an arts manager, organiser, network, and context curator. She holds a master's in ethnolinguistics and has undertaken postgraduate studies in art history and curation through Adam Mickiewicz University. Her passion for the arts began with an internship at Brisbane Powerhouse in Australia. She's had several key positions in prominent arts organisations, including art project manager at Key Performance, an arts management company based in Sweden, and associated co-director and collection manager of Something Great, a Berlin-based project dedicated solely to performing arts preservation, research, and presentation. Since 2018, she's collaborated with Campo Abierto in Uruguay, who focus on social inclusion through the arts. She supports organisations with artistic, curatorial, and strategic advice. Currently, Julia is an associated curator at Internationale Tanzmesse NRW in Düsseldorf, representing the East European region. Today, Julia joins Res Artis to talk about her work on the Sanatorium Project. The Sanatorium Project has been designed as a relief residency for arts professionals working at the front line of support for Ukrainian refugees and has had 2 iterations so far. The project was funded by Trust for Mutual Understanding, and the first sanatorium was organised in close collaboration with Resi Dance. Julia, would you like to tell me more about the aims and outcomes of the project?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. So the project came out of fear and frustration in those moments when the war started, and when I could see also and understand quite quickly that there is a lot of engagement from the citizens. It wasn't just arts professionals that were rushing to offer support, but of course I'm closely connected to all the arts professionals in Poland, and I started actually calling them up. After I think a few weeks of the war, I just didn't know what to do, and I would call friends of friends and some people that I just actually met on the phone in those times to realize and to check how they are doing and what they are doing. And because I was really worried that it's a marathon and people put all their energy all at once into support. So I was worried that they will quickly run into burnout, and I was burning out myself, though I wasn't at the front line in a sense. I didn't go to I was supporting Ukrainian refugees in my own way. I was at the train station every day, delivering food and coupons and welcoming all the refugees that were coming in such huge numbers to Poland. So I could see that I'm getting exhausted, and how to then, what can these people say then? Like, how exhausted are they? And when there were popping up these, opportunities for Ukrainian refugees and artists, offering, short-term residencies, I realized that this is not a solution, because the refugees need a solid base, a long-term support. 2 weeks or a month is just not solving their situations, but those opportunities could be used for those that provide help, and they're at the point of exhaustion, because I was calling people and I would realize that someone fainted at work, and it wasn't the only, one case only, but people were really, really tired and stressed, and they would also refuse to rest. So that I realized that there has to be an organized situation, that there has to be an offer coming in to those people, to the arts professionals, saying, hey, like, there is an opportunity for you to leave. I invite you, or like, we invite you to leave your position for a week and rest with us, do nothing.
I think it's hard also because traditionally arts professionals are the worst people at resting. We're an underfunded sector, so there's a mentality that you should be pushing yourself all the time, and often unsustainably. But then when you meet that with a crisis like this, that pressure gets so much higher.
Yeah, it's actually quite sad to observe how we as industry are also part of this capitalistic overproduction system. This is something that Bojana Kunst has described very well in her book, Artists at Work, and I was actually reading that book while working on the project, and because I was also working at working at the Performing Arts collection, the Something Great collection that you mentioned before, and I was really busy with the overproduction issues, and I think within performing arts, but it's obvious that it is present within arts in general, and artists are just pushed into production and into overproduction constantly, and they always have to deliver and prove themselves that they're artists every year, and when there is an opportunity to go for a residency, even though often there are now residencies that don't expect end product, they still think that while they're there, they need to research, they need to read, they need to be proactive. It's being idle and lazy is not in fashion, definitely, and it's a shame, because this is where your creativity wakes up, and you need that to be creative. And I think this project, even networking nowadays is done in speed dating, which is like to me, it's really the opposite of building a network for me. Like, it's really hard to build a relation in such a short time. So even before the war started, I was dreaming of organizing an event, like unintentional networking would happen. So bringing people, often I was thinking of random people together and ask them to hike, or like exactly be together in one space, 10 people and artists included, and then see what happens. So the crisis actually has enabled me to do this in a pilot mode. it was organized very quickly as an emergency residency and really brought each time 10 people from different sectors of arts field together. And it was for me an amazing learning curve as well.
And would you like to explain what exactly the first iteration and the second iteration consisted of, and how you came to sort of realize them, what processes you had to go through?
The first iteration was organized in 2 weeks. That included fundraising, bringing people together and finding the space, which was amazing because Residence, that you mentioned already before, is a beautiful space in the Czech Republic and dedicated to dance, but also now opening up to other genres of art. It's hidden in a village, difficult to find, difficult to reach, but really easy to love. And it's run by 2 arts producers, and they curate your stay in a beautiful way as well there. And by that I mean that it's possible while you are at residence to really reach out to the local community in a very casual and organic way. So I met Marketa, who runs the space, 2 days before the war started, by accident, actually. I mean, I was at the conference for artists at the festival in Czech Republic, but we met randomly there. I just took her visit card because I thought she spoke in a very interesting way. And, you know, a week later or 2 weeks later, I called her and said, hey, can you host us? And she was super open to that and made things possible. So the first one was organized in a bit of a rush, but nevertheless worked really well. We reached out. I work also with Karolina Wycisk that you mentioned, so we reached out to the people that we knew, and also through recommendations of people that we knew, we reached out to a group of around nine people. And we planned a 10-day retreat because it's a long way to get there, so a week of stay on site. And we promised everybody when we were calling them up that there is no plan, and that they will not be asked to do anything other than just rest. We would encourage them not to work, but of course in those times of crisis we couldn't, you know, we didn't force them to be lazy, but this is the only thing that we asked them to just consider not working online if they can. And that wasn't so easy actually to bring people. Like I said before, many would say, oh, I'm still okay, you should call this and that person because they're in a much worse situation. I still am standing, or I cannot leave because my organization will collapse, or people will not know what to do if I'm not there. So it took us a lot of time to convince the participants that they really needed to rest. And they believed us finally and came over with us to Komarzyce. And it felt that we created a community within an afternoon, within the evening that we arrived. And there was no official presentations, no official introductions. We left it all to the participants to handle, to get to know the space, to get to know the area around us. And we ended up going a lot to the sauna. And this also made us realize that it's a crucial point of any other iterations, that we need a sauna where people can get naked together and really it opens up so much that we talked we had such profound conversations in the sauna. It's somehow primal. I don't know, like it's warm, you're together, and there's nothing to hide. it was an amazing experience to be together like this, and it worked. I still feel that I lack language to really describe what happened, and it's still a short time after the projects have closed, but to say, what is the result and what really happened there. But I feel that this bonding and being really lazy together, like doing nothing together and being lazy together, is something that we are deprived of in current times. And to get that suddenly is such a relief.
Absolutely. And it's interesting how you say you lack language to explain that. And, maybe that's the whole point, that this sort of rest shouldn't come with the ability to be fully defined, because that makes it a task. Sort of good that you don't have language, because maybe you don't need it. But you're also very eloquently, so I think you do have language.
Thank you. But it's true. Like I like the language, but I also don't, I don't want to be saying like, oh, it's magic, what happened, we got to, it's not that. There was no magic. There was just this pure being together, really, like really deeply being together, being silent together, and that has a therapeutic function, but also it connects people in a way that you don't need any extra effort. You don't need to program any talks or any schedule absolutely anything. These things happen organically within the group. So immediately the participants, though they are exhausted and they come there to rest, when somebody has an idea, they jump to it, like it opens up certain areas of your creativity that you thought were long asleep.
Did you find that the participants wanted to talk about their experiences of aiding Ukrainian artists, or did they actually need to have more silence around it to process things?
We didn't really go into describing. Nobody really went into these things would come out, of course, in conversations, because it was obvious everybody was deeply involved and has seen a lot of trauma in the past months. So things would come out, but not specifically discussing their activity as supporters. So things would come out in private conversations about an experience, but not really discussing how things were done and what happened. And the interesting thing for me there was that we were representatives of Polish arts professionals, Ukrainian and Belarusian. So there was also the variety of experiences that were there was huge, and also like the participants from Belarus might have a family member that's currently incarcerated, and we would wait for the call, or like as a community we kind of sustain each other, because there were moments within our stay where, I don't know, another bomb would fall on Kiev or so of course the war was present, but not so much. We needed all of the participants, I think, needed the silence and cutting off a bit in order to sustain themselves and then be able to return home and continue with the work.
And did you find that, I imagine that for each participant, the experience would have felt quite different. did you find that people were quite different in their ability to come to a place of rest? Did it take some longer than others, and did that seem difficult for people?
Yeah, they had their own strategies. Some people were compulsively riding a bike, you know, like going on bike trips and exploring the area. There were a couple that were like, okay, so what do we do now? Like, what do we do next, Julia? They would ask me, and I like, what's the plan? And it took a few days for all of us to really realize that there is no plan, and that is good. It's okay, and we just can do whatever we want. And yeah, I think actually it's the artists actually were the ones that kind of felt the need to not to deliver, but to kind of be like, oh yeah, but maybe this, you know, it's a time for us to use now somehow, and we need to maybe be more efficient. But truth is, most of the participants, especially in the second iteration, arrived so exhausted that they had no other choice in a way but rest. So yeah, I think within a couple of days everybody accepted the fact that it's the meals that divide our day and kind of build a structure of the day, because it was important for us that we eat together. Like, of course, if somebody didn't want, but all of us wanted to be together. So so the meals were something that were defining the day. So there was a certain structure, but what happened within those breaks was up to us. But yeah, still interesting things happened. It's just unplanned.
And how did the second iteration differ from the first?
Yeah, like I said, I feel that the participants there most of them were on the edge. I had the feeling of exhaustion that I had the feeling when we arrived. We arrived in the early evening, and we went for dinner, and it was a silent dinner. We didn't talk so much, and people would say like, we're so tired, sorry, like we just need to rest. And of course, I mean, I didn't expect everybody to be, you know, super chatty on the first meeting, but it was really obvious that it's the tiredness that did not allow for this first meal to be, you know, the way all the others were. And it was all women in the second iteration. And yeah, it was just a different group of people. So of course the energy was different. It was still, I mean, it was amazing, but just different from the first. We were also in a different space, a beautiful, beautiful old set of houses from, I think, 300-year-old settlers house from Holland, I think from the Netherlands, in Poland, in a beautiful area, very remote in a way that, you know, it was a small village, again, difficult to reach. But it was also a place where anyone could come. I mean, it was like a place open to tourists also, so you could rent the house and be there. It wasn't dedicated specifically for artists, and we were taken care in an amazing way by the hosts. They knew who we are, and they really created an amazing space. But still, I believe that the first iteration had somehow not I don't want to say more value, but it was somehow better choreographed, and because we were in a space that was dedicated to movement, somehow our movement throughout the project was socially choreographed in a very beautiful way. Also not completely planned, but we really got to connect with the local community because the space, the residence, has already a very, very strong relations with their surroundings. So the people from the village, you know, they invited us, for example, to join them on a bus trip to Prague and see a show. And then we went to the kind of underground bar that they ran and had beer with all the locals. You know, it's there were things there that maybe didn't have the chance to happen in the other space, or we would have had to maybe ourselves as organizers, I don't know, you know, come there months before to really figure things out. And so that made me realize that these residencies, these kind of gatherings cannot happen just anywhere, and it cannot really be, you know, a random set of people. I mean, it can also, but it's a different kind of project then. That it's important to somehow offer these basic things, like the sauna or any other, you know, kind of gathering situation. Beautiful nature around, and a space that really understands the logic behind this project, and you know, that supports you in it very strongly. So yeah, there are certain little things that are needed, I think, for this project to succeed.
I think it also very much comes down to, for these sorts of projects, it's all about care within facilitation as well. And I think, you know, listening to you speak, it's very clear that you've undertaken everything with a lot of care, a lot of consideration, and have really held space for the artists and art workers without pressure, you know, and with a sense of flexibility to allow them to control the experience and take what they need from it. And I think that's really important. We've had a lot of members who have set up emergency residencies and are doing amazing work. And I think that the main advice that we can give them is to really put that time and care into that facilitation. And, you know, it's important also to, and I'm sure that you had to work out this when you were organising the residencies, to sort of ascertain how much capacity you had yourself to hold that space and to facilitate. And I'm sure that in some ways it was quite challenging to work out how to do that. I'm sure that, I might be wrong, but I assume that when it started, you know, there would have been new types of care or support that the participants needed that you might not have foreseen beforehand. Did you feel like that at all?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because I'm not experienced in that. I mean, I don't know many people who are experienced in, you know, organizing relief projects with human beings that went through a war, basically, because even though our participants were maybe not in Ukraine at the moment of the bombs falling, but they had their family members there. They invited trauma to their living rooms because they were hosting people all the time. So of course, there were situations where I realized, yeah, I wasn't prepared for that. Like at that kind of came as a surprise. But we also knew that for that reasons, we were not really hosting arts professionals with the experience of being a refugee, like so freshly, because we knew that then it's not really, we don't have also, as Karolina and me, we're not, skilled and trained in supporting people with such a fresh trauma, with trauma in general. So this residency was not thought as therapy or trauma therapy. It was thought as a residency of relief for a very short time, just to give that breather and to experiment being together without a plan. But at the second iteration, we invited Katarzyna Sitarz, a choreographer based between Poland and the Netherlands, who is a certified TRE instructor or therapist. And she was as a participant with us, but she also offered, she also ran something like a morning gathering for us to deal with the body waking up, basically. And then we had some introduction to TRE, so that the participants could leave the residency with some tools to help to support themselves and to maybe seek such support later at home. And that was something that we really came to realize after the first iteration, that we missed being touched. So at the second iteration, we had the option of having a massage, and then the TRE gathering also helped us in kind of, we touched each other. If, we could massage or touch each other and ourselves, and that was also something that I felt every human body needs, and especially in those moments of crisis, this is something that, that the choreographer and therapist in one, like Katarzyna, could really support us in this. And I also, I resonated a lot with what you said about, like planning the residency, and then also thinking of how much I, as an organizer, can offer, and how much I can withstand, because I was myself not in a good shape. So, I wouldn't have done it without Karolina Wycisk, who is an amazing producer, curator, organizer, has an extensive network in Poland, and together we were able to pull it out, in such a quick time, and also being able to rest ourselves during those two residencies.
I think, doing it together seems key. I think from my personal experience, those sort of like co-shared roles in facilitation are really important, so that the responsibility doesn't just fall onto one person and can be, carried on many shoulders. And I think often when there is like severe burnout in the arts, it's a case of that support not being there. Whether it's on like a small project or a large one, or within an arts organization, or just, an artist having proper exhibition support. It always comes down to like communication and supporting one another and working together. I'm wondering, did any of the participants speak about, like as a result of the project, ideas of how they could make things a bit easier for themselves returning home, or did they not get to that point of discussion?
Yeah, we definitely spoke about this after the TRE sessions, that that there is a need for like bodily practices and that can help release things, and that, you know, Katarzyna was telling us that, yeah, probably in every city that we are in, you know, there is options and there is choices that we can choose for ourselves what suits us best. You know, also one participant, you know, the one that said, oh, I cannot leave because I'm not sure if my organization will know what to do, you know, when we were there, she realized that her collaborators, co-workers really stepped in and took on the roles, like shared the roles that she was holding on her shoulders, and she really could rest. So that in fact emancipated her team members, you know, and she realized that she's not irreplaceable, which is always a relief. We didn't really, you know, sit down and talk to the participants like, you know, what changes will you introduce? These were these little things that came out after we called some, you know, after we tried to keep in touch with the participants, but yeah, I know that when they arrived, they reached this point of exhaustion that they couldn't speak at dinner. And then a few days later, they were already, you know, rethinking things, how they do and how they work, how they sustain themselves. So, of course, this was present within the residency, but I don't think I can quote not specific, you know, examples of what changes they are introducing into the life. This was something that was bothering me after the first iteration, that maybe the project itself offers the relief for a certain time, but we have no guarantee, or we cannot, of course, control. It's like what happens within 3 months after this residency. Will the participants realize, oh, I need again to organize rest for myself and make a break or take care of my body? Like, is it enough for them that they feel this week of relief? Is it enough to introduce long-lasting changes into their lifestyle? Like, I don't know, probably not. Probably it's not enough. So that's why in the second iteration, we really had things that are, you know, like the massage and the, you know, morning ritual of waking up, and then, you know, a relaxation, so that hopefully this is something that they can use at home, or reach out to communities that offer such support in their hometowns. But yeah, that would have to be entirely different project to you know, change lifestyles of arts professionals. Yeah. But yeah, who knows? I mean, I know that some people did have a revelation and realize that they've been treating their bodies in a way that they can no longer support others because they have been neglecting themselves.
And I imagine that, you know, the revelations will still come. I know that from my personal experience of undertaking residencies and a lot of feedback received from artists, the revelations that come through residencies, whether emotional, social, or artistic, usually don't happen on the residency. You've got so much to take in, or you need to rest, or you need to research, or whatever. And it's often, you know, might be 6 months later, might be 3 years later, that a memory or experience from the residency will actually resurface in an outcome or a realization about how you need to do things differently. Will there be a third iteration?
Yes, there will be, and it's a different kind of sanatorium this time. We are already planning it and fundraising for it, so fingers crossed. But my understanding now of the situations within the arts sector is that you know, that art will not save the world, and we cannot win the war with Putin or whoever, whatever crazy system through artworks and art projects. But I think the art sector, like any other, if there is enough laziness, offers such space of for experimentation that is unseen and unheard of in other sectors. And I think that this is the greatest power of our community, this potential for experimentation. And how about we open our sector to other sectors and offer a gathering without purpose, and the lazy gathering of people coming from science, environmentalists, artists, arts professionals, economists, I don't know, lawyers maybe, you know, like a farmer. Like, how about we bring such a community together without a purpose? And I think there are projects that bring arts and science together, but there is often, you know, a prototyping goal there. Like, there is always, you know, a set of cues that are given, and it's always project based. So in the end, something has to come up. And I feel that these industries don't get the chance to meet and be together outside of the project and formal setting. So I would like to experiment further with unintentional networking and being together and doing nothing together. Because I think nowadays, in those times of overproduction and in those times of crisis, there is so little time and little space to sit back and assess what's going on. And so we are all like thinking that we need to do more. Whereas I think the biggest and most radical or like deeply rooted, you know, act is to do nothing together. That's important. We do it together. So I wish there are more people doing nothing together, simply, and and I want to see what happens.
Absolutely. I think a dear friend said to me when I was undertaking a residency a few years ago and struggling to make work, to remember that thinking is productive too. And I think that's a really important thing that our creative sector needs to hold on to, that there doesn't always need to be that, you know, outcome. And I love the idea of bringing in people from other fields as well. I think often people who are outside of the arts will actually have the most insightful things to say about the arts. But I think I feel like that's probably, it's about 50 minutes, and I think we've covered a lot of wonderful ground in our conversation today. Do you feel like you need to add anything?
I actually have a quote. I don't know if you want to use it, but maybe I read it to you just in case you think it's useful.
Yes, please.
Because it's an artist that Bojana Kunst quoted in the lecture, that keynote speech that she prepared for the Something Great collection. And his name is Mladen Stilinovic, and it's an artist, conceptual artist from Croatia, and he he experienced working in the communist regime as being an artist, you know, in the former Yugoslavia, and then he had to transition into the Western system of working as an artist, which is like, you know, project-based style of working, and he wrote this manifesto, the Praise for Laziness, and I think he wrote it in the 90s when the transition years were taking place, and it's very interesting. It was very awakening for me to read it, and there is one passage about laziness that I particularly like, so I thought to read it to you. Laziness is the absence of movement and thought, downtime, total amnesia. It is also indifference, staring at nothing, non-activity, impotence. It is sheer stupidity, a time of pain, of futile concentration. Those virtues of laziness are important factors in art. Knowing about laziness is not enough. It must be practiced and perfected. And I think that's the key. I think we need to perfect and practice laziness and abandon this awful thought that we always need to produce something, and that there has to be, you know, end result of everything we do and a purpose to everything, you know, like that it's okay to just stare at the horizon with a fellow artist for an hour and not to come to any conclusions, you know, just that's also good, and there should be time for it. And I would love to choreograph that time, curate that time for others.
Well, that's a beautiful note to end on, and thank you so much for all of the hard work you're doing to ensure that that can happen for so many people. And for anyone watching who is a Ukrainian artist or cultural worker who does need support, you can go to the Res Artis website, resartis.org. We have a Ukrainian section on our website that lists emergency residencies and aid initiatives. Thank you so much, Julia, for your time.
Thank you for your work as well.
Pleasure. Yeah, no, that was a wonderful conversation. I think it'll be very, very useful, I think, in different ways, in encouraging people to rest, but also in anyone who is thinking about developing similar programs to sort of do so responsibly and with care, which is really important and a hard, like a challenging thing to communicate. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.